10:30 means 3:30 your time, which means at 3:20 I have to stop. Of course, you can all join the kirtan. So I'm going to have to talk fast. And that's the bad news. The good news is better late than never. We have some time. So today's topic, can you clarify for me? You want to talk about some 5 good qualities, divine qualities, and 5 demoniac qualities, and is that the idea?
That's right, yeah, based on chapter 16 of the Bhagavad-Gita.
Yeah. So the first thought, or first understanding we should have is that divine qualities and demoniac qualities don't live in groups of 5. When you get one, you get a whole. It's like, you get married, you get the whole family, right? So because they exist within certain modes of nature. So all the good qualities that you develop, they come from developing Krishna consciousness. And if one isn't a devotee, they come from developing sattva gun, generally, although they can be found in other gunas, but they're not pure in the other gunas. So just like you read in Bhagavad-Gita, the 18th chapter, the qualities of the Brahmins, qualities of Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. So it's because of the mode of nature they're in, those qualities accompany that mode of nature. So when you get in goodness, then you get sama dhammas taposo cham shanta arjavam evacha. But sama dhammas taposo cham shanta arjavam evacha, that's 7. But you get much more than 7. That's a 7 prominent. But sama, you're equal poised, peaceful, but that means you're not prejudiced. That means you deal equally with happiness and distress, loss, gain, victory, defeat. So within equal poised, there's this whole subset. Within Dhamma, sense control, it's also emotional control, mental control, the ability to let go of things you can't control. So they come in packages. As you know, I give a course on forgiveness, connected with resentment, so many bad qualities, connected with forgiveness, so many good qualities. Within forgiveness, you have compassion, you have emotional responsibility, you have empathy, you have the ability to face your issues. There's so many things. So as a general overview, divine qualities exist within sattva gun, or we should say truly divine qualities exist in Vishuddha sattva. But just for the sake of general discussion of the 3 modes of nature, the good qualities exist within sattva gun. And the demoniac qualities tend to exist primarily in tamagun and somewhat rajagun. And so that's general starting point. If you're cultivating tamagun, then the whole family of bad qualities tends to accompany it. Whereas if there's lack of sense control, being influenced by the mode of passion, giving in to our lower nature, then we're going to give in to so many things. Lack of sense control, what does that mean? It's almost like every bad quality that exists due to lack of sense control. But there's another point that's interesting in this chapter. And Prabhupada is explaining that generally when we talk about demoniac qualities, or generally when we talk about good qualities, we're talking about those who are following the Vedas and those who are religious, as opposed to those who are not following and who are irreligious, because in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how the demoniac, actually that chapter 16 is mostly devoted to the demoniac qualities, because Krishna said, well, we already described so many of the divine qualities, so let's get into the demoniac. We'll describe that. And so Krishna's general description of demoniac is they don't follow the Vedas. And not following the Vedas or some standard scripture is a definition of atheism, asura, we say, against God, or not godly. So that's your general description of demoniac qualities. They're not in relation to Shastra. There is no Shastra. It's basically people acting whimsically based on their own ideas and imaginations, creating their own rules. And then you take it, if you take it to the furthest extent, then you come to just outright atheism. And in one of the verses, it's interesting, in the Sanskrit, the word is avowed. And avowed to asuchi, avowed to be unclean. So like we have this, he's an avowed atheist. He's, he's public about it. This is what I'm committed to. So basically, committed to be unclean, committed to the mode of ignorance, committed to not following Shastra, committed to everything against God. So that's where all the demoniac qualities stem from, that tamasic soil. So if you plant your seeds in tamasic soil, you're going to get tamasic. Even the seeds may have, well, maybe that's not a good example. Let's just say the seeds are tamasic. Asuras are born with these tamasic qualities. In a sense, we're all born with them, but then we can cultivate good qualities. So that's the starting point, general overview. Where do the good qualities come from? Where do the bad qualities come from? So then, understanding that, then we begin to understand how important it is to live a sattvic life. Now, do I have to cultivate a sattvic life independently? And what if I just cultivate a sattvic life? Then I go to Satyaloka, my next life. So the answer is yes and no. We generally, if you follow Krishna consciousness strictly, it's beyond sattvic. But still, because we live in a culture which is very tamasic, and we were raised in that culture, we have to be a little careful, and we have to understand more what does it mean to be sattvic. And for us, it basically means you're following spiritual principles 24/7 all the time. Now, we live in this culture which is throwing at us all kinds of tamasic and rajasic media, sounds, visuals, books, things to read. And so how could everyone say, well, how can you be sattvic when you're surrounded by that? Well, it depends what you do with it and it depends how you allow it to affect you. If you have a very sattvic life, these things don't affect you. The problem is if we're very passionate or tamasic ourselves, then the environment around us sees in, because it's kind of like attracts like. So that's where the problem arises. So you can't cultivate divine qualities and cultivate tamasic activities at the same time. Now, here's the problem for us. I cultivate some sattvic activities, some rajasic activities, and some passionate activities, right? So that's why I felt good up till about 9 o'clock, and then everything was downhill. I chanted, I read, went to class, but then something happened, and I turned on Facebook, and that was like the end of Sattvaguna. Now we're just going down. Of course, Facebook has some good stuff on it, but you understand what I'm saying. So we tend to juggle with different modes of nature, and until we're more advanced, until we're more situated, until our life is more transcendental, or at least sattvic. So Prabhupada said that sattva-guna is what we should be cultivating, because that becomes the foundation for our spiritual life. Krishna told Arjuna in this chapter, after he discussed divine demoniac qualities, he said, don't worry, you were born with divine qualities. That's good if any of you were born with divine qualities, that's good. Most of us may have some, but not the whole long list of them. And we have a long list of some other bad ones, as you all know, because you live with your own mind. So you know what you have. So for us as devotees, these demoniac, asuric tendencies, whatever they are, jealousy, envy, greed, lust, anger, what is Krishna? Moha, illusion, bodily attachment, so many. There are different lists. You can find different lists, the 5 illusions, the 5 material contaminations, but it's pretty unlimited when you really dig into it. If you were to do your dissertation on demoniac qualities, there's a lot more than 5, obviously. A lot more than just general categories of 5 or 6 or 8. So for us as devotees, one may say, well, why should I cultivate these quote unquote divine qualities? Because all I have to do is just do devotional service and they'll develop. And so that sounds good on the surface until you start unpacking it. And if you're engaged with demoniac qualities, how do you do devotional service? That's the problem. So if I just do devotional service, I'll develop all good qualities. Okay, so not exactly true. It is true, but there's a big part missing. So Jiva Goswami addressed this point in relation to humility. So the question he addressed was, is humility a byproduct of bhakti? Like when you get bhakti, when you get prema, do you get humility? Of course, the answer is yes. Is humility an ingredient of bhakti? Can you even have bhakti if you don't have humility? Is that necessary ingredient to just do bhakti? Yes, the answer is yes. Humility exists within bhakti. If you have bhakti, you have humility. When you develop bhakti, it's an ingredient you need, and not that you need, it's an ingredient that exists within bhakti. It's like you can't make khichdi without dal rice and spice, and dal rice and water. You need at least dal rice and water. Water and rice, no. Water and beans, no. Rice and dal, no. Rice, dal, water. At least that. So you need humility to have bhakti. Without humility, there's no bhakti. And then the next question was, well, do you need humility to get it? So yes, humility is part of it. When you have prema, automatically you're going to have love. So there's like different angles of looking at it. But the last question was, do you need humility to get bhakti? And the answer was yes. So the answer was yes to all 3 questions. So that explains how sometimes we just take one angle of it. Oh, when you get bhakti, you get everything. But here we see, no, that's only 1/3 of the equation. So you can take any quality, take compassion. It's a fundamental quality of bhakti. Do you get compassion when you get love? Yes. Is compassion part of bhakti? Yes. Do you need compassion to get bhakti? Yes. So that's where this idea of sattva gun comes in. You need these qualities to get it. Right? You have to. So some of them, if we use the argument that if I practice bhakti, I will get bhakti. I will get all good qualities. Okay, let's go with that. Fine. What is the practice of bhakti? The practice of bhakti is practicing compassion, humility, not being envious, being in the service mood, appreciating devotees, being honest, living with integrity, controlling your mind. So all the things that you're supposed to get, or you will get when you're a pure devotee, are part of the practice of bhakti, employing those things, practicing sense control, practicing honesty, practicing tolerance, practicing forgiveness, practicing controlling anger. And so that's all part of the practice. So you can't say, I don't have to do that and I'll just get it. It's part of the practice. Then we go back to the original idea. That is in the mode of goodness. All those things are actions in the mode of goodness. Okay. And if you look at all your demoniac qualities, they're all passion and ignorance. And I have a little mantra, and it's an interesting mantra. So all your problems, if you look at all your problems, it's because all your problems are either in passion or ignorance. When you get to sattva, that's where you don't have problems. So if you're having a problem, I'm not inspired, I'm not this, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling, I'm not able to get up early, I'm not able to do this. Whatever your problem is, I can't control this. It's all usually predominated by influence of tamagun. And then you just ask yourself, if I was purely situated in sattva guna, or as purely as I could be, or obviously transcendental, would I have this problem? No, you wouldn't. That problem is indicative of the lower modes of nature. So that's how we understand the importance of sattva guna. And then it's really just practicing the divine qualities. That's how they'll manifest. And don't practice the demoniac qualities, because that's how they'll manifest. So what happens, this is very interesting. This is really, really interesting. Very interesting. I have something very interesting to tell you all. This could be one of the most interesting things you hear in the last hour. So pay attention. I'm trying to, I can only see one screen. Anyway, as you know, whatever you practice, you get really good at, isn't it? Practice makes perfect. And here, I have a keyboard here. So if you're a little kid and the piano teacher tells you to practice, you have to do. You have to do that, right? I can't even do it because I never practiced. Then you have to use 2 hands. So what happens after you practice like that? You practice, you practice, you practice. I have a friend, he practices guitar. He's a devotee. He practices guitar like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day. And he's really good. And he can play guitar amazingly and hold a conversation with you while he's playing. You know, like I'm playing the keyboard and I'm talking. I'm giving a class while I'm playing. How can I give a class and play? Because I've played that so many times. It becomes a habit, right? You drive a car, you don't even have to think, you're talking, you're listening to the radio, you're chanting, whatever you're doing, the car, you're shifting the gears. It's all embedded in your, what do they say, muscle memory? Muscle memory is just habit. So what happens when you have, let's say, anger issues? Then you don't try to sattvatize them. Sattvatize, that's a new word. I just made it up. Sattvatize. We're going to sattvatize our anger. How do we sattvatize our anger? When we feel it, we don't act on it. That's sattva guna. It's controlled, right? Controlled doesn't necessarily mean you don't have it. It just means you don't act on it. All right? So if I don't do that, and then every time I get angry, I act on it, it develops a habit. And so I get really good at not controlling my anger because I never control it. And every time I get angry, I just burst out and offend somebody or hurt somebody. So I become more habituated and conditioned. And then I start thinking, actually, I can't control it. It's impossible. I never even tried to control it. As a result, I can't control. I think I can't control it because it's become a habit. If I practice the opposite, every time I feel angry, I think this is not right. It's not Krishna conscious. This is not what Krishna wants me to do. It's not what my guru wants me to do. It's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt everyone around me. It's completely tamasic, and I need to live a sattvic life, and I'm going to control it. And even though I'm angry, I'm not going to say anything. Even though I feel envious, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to do anything. Even though I feel resentful, I'm not going to try to get back at the person. I control it, right? So what happens by practicing control? You practice, you practice, you practice, you practice. You get good at it. So you start sattvatizing your emotions. You just start sattvatizing your thoughts. You start sattvatizing. What a word. Is there a Sanskrit word for sattvatizing? Who knows Sanskrit? Sattvaya, full of sattva. Yeah, maybe that's it. Sattva. Anyone know Sanskrit? You can give me the Sanskrit word for sattvatizing. Sattvaya, full of sattva. So you like we say, Krishnaize, sattvatize. Yeah. So you practice that. And so what happens? You start to get good at controlling yourself because you practice. So this is something that is really important for us to recognize, that every time I give in to something that I shouldn't give into, it embeds that samskara a little more strongly. It's explained. Every time you engage in a sinful activity, the seed to commit that sin is again dropped. It's like, okay, I commit this sin. It produces a seed. The seed is planted. And now the desire to commit that sin is even stronger. And that's total motive passion. That's why Krishna says in the mode of passion, whatever you do just makes you want to do more. It doesn't satisfy you. It just drops seeds of desire. So you want to do more. That's the nature of passion. The nature of goodness is much different. The nature of goodness is it purifies passion. It overcomes passion. So I think the big lesson, the big takeaway is that we want to establish ourselves in sattva gun, because from sattva gun, naturally, Krishna consciousness is easiest, is best practiced from sattva gun. That's where it's meant to be practiced from. And if we cultivate lower modes of nature, which means not necessarily cultivating, but allowing them, not doing anything about them, because say we don't, it's not like we're looking for them. They're already existing within us, but we don't give in to them, but we sattvatize whatever's going on. So even though we may feel something, we don't act on it. We feel upset, but we're still nice to people around us, even though we're upset. We bring ourselves sama, equal. We're trying to be equal. Second chapter of Gita, Krishna's just talking about be equal. Don't get upset. Don't get joyful. Don't get upset when you lose. Don't go crazy when you win. Don't go crazy when it's cold. Don't complain when it's hot. Just keep going. That's necessary to be Krishna conscious. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, come to sattva gun. That's not the ultimate instruction. That's the beginning. So now, if you would like to pick some qualities, let's pick a few qualities to discuss, because that was part of the topic. This morning, I was studying an interesting topic, because envy is one of the main demoniac qualities. And the problem with English is that it's not Sanskrit. That's the big problem with English, isn't it? Isn't that the problem with English, that it's not Sanskrit? So what do I mean by that? The problem with English is it's not Sanskrit, is that when you translate the word into English, then you have to go with the English definition. What does that word mean? The second problem is the English definition changes over time because it's based on how the word's used. The word jealous does not mean what most people think it means, but we use it kind of as a synonym for envy. So that's kind of what it's come to mean, right? Jealousy and envy has kind of come to mean the same thing. But jealousy really means I don't like you because you want something I have, where envy is I don't like you because I want something you have. That's actually technically what it means, but it can also mean envy, and that's generally how we use it. But there are different words in Sanskrit. Matsara is envy, suya is envy, dvesha also means hatred, is also used for envy. But in some places in Prabhupada's books, he said you shouldn't be envious of the cow. And I'm thinking, why would I be envious of a cow? I don't really look at a cow and think, oh, I wish I could be a cow. I wish I had a body like a cow. I wish I could produce the milk of a cow. I think, what does that mean? Because we understand envy to mean somebody has something you want and you want it. You're not happy they have it. So, and dvesha means hatred or repulsion. So then dvesha is used for envy, and envy sometimes translated as violence. So, and then envy is commonly as we understand it. So envy is an interesting word. So I caught on this word, thinking, okay, let me look at this because it interested me. And then, so I was looking, envy, jealousy. What is the difference between envy and jealousy? And technically in English language, you have that difference. I'm envious of you because I think you're going to steal my wife. I'm jealous of you because I think you're going to steal my wife. I'm envious of you because you have a beautiful wife and I'd like to have her. So one is what you have and one is what you don't have. That's technically one of the definitions. It's not always the way we use it. But so I was going through the Veda base looking at the words jealousy and envy to see how Prabhupada used them. And he used them exactly the same, except for these cases where envy was given another meaning where you're violence, where you commit violence to another. It's also a sign that you're envious, as opposed to compassionate, kind. You're not the well-wisher. You know, when you're envious of someone, you're not a well-wisher. So part of not being a well-wisher in relation to animals is eating them, as strange as that sounds. We can tell that the people say, why are you vegetarian? Say, we are the well-wishers of all animals. And if you're not vegetarian, you're not a well-wisher. They probably never thought of it like that, but it's interesting, isn't that? You find that interesting? We are the well-wishers of all the animals, of all forms of life. We're not envious. You know why you eat meat? Because you're envious of the cow. Envious of the cow? I don't want to be a cow. So anyway, some details about envy, but general understanding of envy and the way Prabhupada applies it most of the time is somebody has something and we want it. And maybe we don't like the fact that they have it. Not only do I want it, but I would be happy if they don't have it. Someone is better than me and I can't accept it. I can't acknowledge it. That's envy, right? Now here's the bad news. Ladies and gentlemen, there's some turbulence coming, so please fasten your seatbelt. There's the turbulent news. Put your tray tables up, put your seats in the upright position. Put on your fasten belt. If you're in the bathroom, sit down. Turbulence. There's some turbulent kata coming. Here's the turbulence. You, me, all of us cannot envy someone, cannot hate someone, could not resent someone. Any of those demoniac qualities, we cannot exhibit those qualities unless we have that tendency towards Krishna. That's the turbulent news. It's very depressing, but very important to realize. When I'm envious of another devotee, I think I'm envious of that devotee because of this and that. I'm trying to put them down, criticize them. It's very purifying to think, no, I'm not envious of them, I'm envious of Krishna. That's the reality. It's just coming out this way. My envy of Krishna is coming out towards this devotee, that's all. Hare Krishna. My anger towards Krishna is coming out in my anger towards this person. My fault finding is coming out in, why did God have to create the world like this? Why did Krishna have to make me so? You know, we criticize Krishna. Have you ever said, why did God create so much suffering? Like that was he made a mistake? That's a criticism. You've just criticized him. Have you ever done that before? Criticize God. Why did he make the world like this? If I were God, I wouldn't make it that way. If I were God, there'd be no suffering. Everybody would be happy and we'd love one another. Yeah, that's a criticism. So, right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that when you love Krishna, you love everyone. He said something so interesting. He said, when you have love for Krishna, that same emotion of bhav that you have for Krishna, when that, you could say, it's facing Krishna, it's called bhava. And when that bhava faces away from Krishna towards everyone else, it's called compassion. It's the same emotion. It's the same thing, just shining in a different place. I'm looking to Krishna, it's called bhav. I look away from Krishna with that same emotion, it's called compassion. So the same idea, unless you have love for Krishna, how will you have love for anybody? So that's why it said all good qualities will develop. Because when you love Krishna, you love everyone. When you're not envious of Krishna, then you will appreciate everyone. You will not criticize anyone. Like that. So now let's bring this down to another discussion, which is also interesting, and then we'll try to life without Krishna. I'm looking, Neela, at your thing. Drowning. Life with Krishna. Oh yeah, floating. Okay. So here's an interesting question. Can an atheist be compassionate? Can an atheist be humble? Can an atheist be honest? Can an atheist be kind? Can an atheist be any of these things? Is that an interesting question? And of course, the first answer is, yeah, well, I know an atheist, nice guy, everybody loves him, right? So yeah, an atheist can be a nice guy. Can he be humble? Yeah, he always lets me go in front of him, and he's always very modest. Meek means modest, He does very well. No, it's his, his nature. He can have those qualities. But then the next question is, can an atheist have divine qualities? That's an interesting question, right? No, doesn't even believe in God. So is there a difference between ordinary compassion and divine compassion? Yes, of course. Something really interesting is, you can have compassion in the mode of passion. Did you know that? You could have humility in the mode of passion, and I'll explain. And that's much different from humility in sattva guna. And it's much different from humility in bhakti. They all have, you can have them, but they have differences. So or you can have humility. Okay, let's just take humility in three modes and transcendence. Humility in the mode of ignorance is just going to be low self-esteem. It's not humility. It's just going to be self-deprecation, which turns into depression. Humility in the mode of passion is going to be utilized to get something. So you go to work and you want to be promoted, so you're very humble with your boss. Yes, sir, whatever you say, I'll do it. Thank you, you're the greatest. And he tells you made a mistake. Yes, you're right, I made a mistake. You just want him to love you, so he promotes you. So you're very humble. You need that job, and you need to get on his good side, so you're humble. And if we look at you, we'll say, wow, you are so humble. But when you go home, you're not humble. But you're humble there in the office because you're motivated to get a better position. So you can't exhibit humility, but where is it coming from? It's coming from passion. The nature of passion is that it's generated by a desire to get something. The nature of ignorance is just ignorant, basically. It's just craziness and misery. The source is craziness and misery, and the result is more craziness and misery. But in passion is motivated by getting something. And even in passion, you could follow Shastra. You go to the Shastra and say, okay, I want to learn how to practice humility. Shastra says, if you're humble, you gain things. So, okay, I want to gain things. So I want to gain things in my office. In goodness, you follow Shastra. You follow injunctions of Shastra. because it's the right thing to do. Now, you might follow it to get liberated. You may follow it to be a religious person. But in Sattva Gun, it's not necessarily true that you follow it because you're trying to please Krishna. But because the Shastra says it and you're dharmic, it's out of dharma, you do it out of duty, it's the right thing. So why I respect my parents, that's a sign of humility. Why? Because it's the right thing, it's culture, it's what Shastra says. You should respect your parents. Shastra says you should respect your teachers. Shastra says humility is a quality of the human being. If you're humble, you'll get so much piety and merit and so forth. So you do it because it's the right thing. And in Vishuddhasattva, in bhakti, why do you do it in bhakti? Because it pleases Krishna. Krishna doesn't like it when his devotees are proud. And whenever his devotees are proud, what does he do? That doesn't cut their neck off. He cuts off their pride. That was a bad, okay, rewind, that wasn't right. He chops their pride. He chops their pride, not their heads, not their necks, their pride. So we see that so often with Brahma, with Indra, gopis, because the gopis are different, that was transcendental, but Brahma and Indra becoming proud. Anytime a devotee becomes proud, Krishna's, okay, it's time for a little false ego deflation program. Krishna does something. He doesn't like proud devotees. And when Sanatana Goswami came, he exhibited so much humility, just Mahaprabhu's heart was melting. Humility melts Krishna's heart. So a devotee thinks, I should be humble because it pleases Krishna. That's Vishuddhasattva. That's why we do it. And of course, in Vishuddhasattva, humility is naturally manifest. So that's important to understand, right? In 10 minutes, I have to pick up and go. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I get invited to so many classes, and a lot of them are only an hour, or an hour and a half. And so we had scheduled, I schedule every morning kirtan on Sundays at 10:30, which is 3:30 your time. Anyway, if you go to my Facebook later, you can see the kirtan. So now, here's my big realization, another big takeaway, I think. My big realization, the how-to question. Prabhu, I have a question. How do you become humble? Prabhu, I have a question. How do you become forgiving? Prabhu, I have a question. How to be, Prabhu, I have another question. How do you control your sins? How to do all these things? It starts, number one, realizing you need to do that. Some of us don't even realize it. Oh, I never thought I was proud. I never thought I had to develop this or that. I thought I was a humble guy, a compassionate girl. The first thing you have to recognize that you're lacking in that area. And you might say, well, I know I'm proud. Yeah, probably most of us know we're proud, or we're not the most humble person. But there may be other things we don't know about ourselves that we need to improve on. So we have to be aware, self-aware that there's something to work on. And you think proud people realize they're proud? Most of them don't. If they did, they'd stop being proud because they realize their behavior is kind of obnoxious. But so it's not so obvious all the time. So that's number one. We have to recognize it, that I even have something to work on. Well, let's say maybe before number one, we understand the principle that it's not just, I just chant Hare Krishna, and then one day I wake up with all good qualities. Until then, I just, whatever. It's not like that. Number one is realizing we're going to have to work on this, not independent of bhakti, but within bhakti, that it is a practice. Working on this is a practice of bhakti. So then number two, recognizing what I need to work on. And number three, actually working on it, facing it, acknowledging, okay, this is what I have to work on, and then beginning to practice. So whatever it is that you feel you need to be working on, that has to start being practiced within all your activities. Now, some people say, but how can I practice bhakti in my daily life, I'm in an office and here and there, there's no time to practice. And I say, it's just the opposite. You go to your office, now you have a chance to practice tolerance, non-enviousness, sense control, patience. They're like, you have a chance, you know, your boss is nasty. Now you can practice forgiveness and tolerance. Somebody speaking behind your back, you can practice compassion, just thinking, oh, there's something, they're having a bad day. They need to vent on somebody. There's so much opportunity. The material world is the best place you could ever be to practice developing good qualities. Did you know that? This is the place to do it. Because coming at you all the time are things you're gonna have to tolerate, forgive, things are gonna disturb you, have to control your anger, your emotions, like it's all coming at you. So at every moment, practically with every encounter, you have to practice. Like a Sankirtan devotee, he's approaching people and people are making him feel like he doesn't exist. Get out of my way. No, thank you. Like you feel like, God, nobody cares about me. They don't even want to give me the time of day. But it's a practice of humility. You're feeling humble. You actually feel blissful when people say, get out of my way. Get a job. That's making you humble. And you're thinking, my job is to make you Krishna conscious. My job is to calm your mind down, sir. So anyway, you understand what I'm saying. Life, there's so much time to practice. There's so many opportunities all the time to practice divine qualities. And we need to do this because it's the foundation. The other thing is, I call myself a devotee. Well, a devotee has all these qualities. How can I call myself a devotee unless I possess these qualities? Right? So what does it mean to be a devotee? One who has kind, humble, meek, tolerant, doesn't eat more than required, self-control, blah, blah, blah. You know, the 26 qualities of a devotee. Kind, humble. We did a song. You ever hear that song? He is kind, humble, and meek, a well-wisher to everyone. He doesn't eat more than he needs. He is peaceful and something else. It's on a CD called Songs for Christian Kids. We did all 26 qualities. Kind, humble, and meek, a well-wisher to everyone. He doesn't eat more than he needs. He is peaceful and something. Maybe you know, but you know my songs better than I know them. Peaceful and, yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, you probably have 108 questions and we have like 3 minutes. Although I could try to get on Zoom on my phone, and when I walk up to where we're doing kirtan, keep the class going for a few minutes. But I'm sorry about that. I have to pay more attention. Last week we messed up totally. I got on to do the kirtan at the required time, except it was supposed to be 7:30 in the evening, India time. I thought it was 7:30 evening, my time. Yeah, you know, the devil's in the details. That's why I have Jenny, because Jenny, she's into details. And I'm not into details, just we have different natures. I need secretaries who are into details, because when you have 400 things going on simultaneously, sometimes you miss the details. So I miss them, but I think we should stop now. Maybe there's a question, 1 or 2 questions, or maybe we have to continue this class another time if you want, if you have questions. But I think I made some basic points. You could, you really, oh yeah, the last thing, I forgot, the most important thing. Oh, Krishna. So once you admit you have it, the most important thing is you actually want to develop it, because if you don't want to develop it, it's not going to happen. You have to be motivated. This is what Krishna wants. Krishna wants me to be equipoise. He wants me to be controlled. He wants me to control my anger. He wants me to be tolerant. He wants me to be honest. He wants me to be forgiving. That I want to do it to please him. I want to do it to please my guru. I want to do it to exemplify what Prabhupada teaches to the world. I want to do it as an example to other people that Krishna consciousness works. There has to be something that goes on inside you that just, I want this quality. This is really important for me. It's emotional. It's not intellectual. You feel it on a deep level. I really have a need. I really have a desire to be like this. That's when you get the power to be able to do it. Otherwise, you know how hard it is to be humble. You know how hard it is to become free from envy. You know how hard it is to control your conditioning, your mind, your senses. You know that. So unless your motive is stronger than the forces that are pulling you away, how are you going to win? The inspiration has to be stronger. Correct? You agree? I mean, look what you're dealing with. We're dealing with the forces in the world, and the inspiration, it better be stronger than the forces working against you. Otherwise, just like you'll think, oh, it's too hard. It's not, I can't do it. And you just give up, isn't it? So, Hare Krishna to everyone. I have to go.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mahatma Prabhu.
Jai.
Apologies again for the technical issues when we started. Definitely would like to continue. I'll be in touch with Jenny Mataji,
Yeah.
and we can try and arrange something in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully next time we won't have any technical issues, that we can hear. It was very interesting what you were saying, and we'd definitely like to continue. So
Some seeds for thinking, and you can write your questions down, and next time we could maybe start with the questions. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a good
definitely.
topic. It's
So there's lots of questions.
very important, and I think it's overlooked because we look at Krishna consciousness like, I have to chant 16 rounds, follow principles, I have to do some seva, I have to produce some results, and we can overlook the fact that unless I'm developing these qualities, it very likely means I'm still playing with ignorance and rajas, and it's a symptom that I'm playing with it, and I need to be more sattvic. And the last thing I want to say, of course, these are all seeds for thinking. In my experience of preaching, if we don't exhibit what we're telling other people to do, it actually can have a horrible effect on them, because they'll think, you're telling me to control yourself. You're saying the importance of being humble and so forth. And I see that you're not doing that. So it must not work. It must be impossible. Or I can't get inspired by you. So this is super, super important. The way you inspire people and move people is ultimately by your behavior more than anything, right? So some things to think about. Many things actually to think about. And I'd love to continue another time. So you will figure it out, and then we'll be in touch. Okay?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And I have to run, literally, not figuratively. I have to run to the spot we're going to do kirtan. So the kirtan, it's done by a temple in India, the Rohini temple. It's going to be on their Facebook page, but it's also going to my Facebook page, Mahatma dasa, professional page. So if you want to attend, you're all welcome. We'll chant together. And we'll see you there. And Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Jai.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, everyone. I'll just close the meeting, and sorry for the technical issues at the start.